natural resources as well as spirits and in the physical. We all long for such a place to call home, and we can make it happen by God's grace.
Our local government areas and counties, are you preparing? Do you have an ethics commission in your local government areas, counties to serve as a moral compass for you? Do you have a copy of the Ambazonia Ethics Code and the Constitution?
All arms of government, do you have an ethics agency? Departments of DSS, HSS, Communications and IT, Education, DHACM, DFA and DEINR. Do you have ethics agency to serve as a moral compass for your departments?
Ambazonians, you need to know your rights by reading the Ethics Code and the Constitution.
Shame unethical behavior and reward good behavior in your communities. Hold leaders accountable. Be the watchdog of your communities and government. See something, say something.
The church, you are the main research center of moral principles with the responsibility of moralizing the society. How effective are you outside the church building?
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, then you do better. Ambazonians, watch ethics for an emerging Ambazonia every Friday at 10 p.m. Amba time.
Exclusively on ABC Amba TV. Stay tuned. Work from dusk to dawn, but a woman's work is never done. Undoubtedly, moms deserve to be celebrated because they are always putting others ahead of themselves. Mother's Day is the perfect opportunity to stop and reflect on all of her hard work. Of course, Mother's Day isn't just a day for celebrating your own mother. It's a day for honoring all women in your life who support and nurture you, from your sister to your grandmother. It's also a chance to wish a happy Mother's Day to the mothers in Ambazonia who are bearing the brunt of the war. Sometimes, the best way to thank Mother Ambazonia is with a simple and heartfelt message. Not all of us can write like Shakespeare, and it can be difficult to put our feelings into words. That's why we're calling on all women, men, old, young to say Happy Mother's Day by getting a copy of the book Echoes of Women's Tears. Echoes of Women's Tears is one platform where the Ambazonian woman gets some closure from the pain of losing their own in the senseless war. Echoes of Women's Tears, a 21st century genocide in the former British Southern Cameroons. Get your copy today.
The Ambazonian mother pains in thorns, cries out blood as she sees her own maimed and wasted. Her joy of childbirth turns out bloody. While we may not be able to feel the weight of the pain of what the Ambazonian mother is carrying all through, we do know that recognizing her this day would mean a lot of hope for her. Death leaves a heartache no one can heal, love leaves a memory no one can steal. For our love for you, Mama, we will beat Cameroon out of Amazonia. We will win the war. Sooner than later your tears of agony will suddenly become tears of melody. Happy Mother's Day, Mother Ambazonia. From the savannah to the Midland and the Atlantic, Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. Ambazonia rise.
Dear Ambazonians on the home front and diaspora.
Dear Ambazonia freedom fighters in the home front and in the diaspora.
The Ethics Commission of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is coming out to alert you that it is becoming more and more evident that the former British Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonians, will soon emerge as the newest nation in the world.
We are calling on all of us to start preparing to receive Ambazonia as parents prepare to receive their firstborn child. Malcolm X said, tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We are already very educated, talented, and very rich in natural resources. Do all this guarantee a safe and prosperous Ambazonia? The answer is an emphatic no. Theodore Roosevelt said, to educate a person in the mind but not in morals is to educate a menace in society.
Ambazonians, it is time to start planning to restore our cultural and social values that characterize us as a people of good repute. Before our Republic to Cameroon invasion, we were respectful of each other, of the law, and of our culture. We earned our living through honest hard work, making clean money for ourselves.
Our values helped us to maximize the benefits of our natural resources as well as our human resources. Southern Cameroons were serene and clean, simply beautiful in spirit and in the physical. We all long for such a place to call home, and we can make it happen by God's grace.
Our local government areas and counties, are you preparing? Do you have an ethics commission in your local government areas, counties to serve as a moral compass for you? Do you have a copy of the Ambazonia Ethics Code and the Constitution?
All arms of government, do you have an ethics agency? Departments of DSS, HSS, Communications and IT, Education, DHACM, DFA and DEINR. Do you have ethics agency to serve as a moral compass for your departments?
Ambazonians, you need to know your rights by reading the Ethics Code and the Constitution.
Shame unethical behavior and reward good behavior in your communities. Hold leaders accountable. Be the watchdog of your communities and governments. See something, say something.
The church, you are the main research center of moral principles with the responsibility of moralizing the society. How effective are you outside the church building?
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, then you do better. Ambazonians watch ethics for an emerging Ambazonia every Friday at 10 p.m. Amba time.
Exclusively on ABC Amba TV. Stay tuned.
from the...
Now is the era of self-defense. From effective personal self-defense to legitimate Ambazonia community protection programs to stop the wanton destruction of lives and our property in Ambazonia. We are therefore going to work to accredit and embrace all self-defense and security groups that will endorse our IG rules of engagement. I will be reaching out to all in the days ahead. I hereby wish to extend an olive branch to all movements and our able activists in this struggle to bring in their best contributions on my table, and let's serve our great country now together more than ever before. I will be giving all Ambazonians a direct hotline to send in their suggestions. We need to fund the struggle now. Our brothers and sisters on ground zero are paying for the war with their blood. We must sell our jewels and deny ourselves every comfort to pay for our freedom with our last might. Fellow Ambazonians, I have convened the National Security Advisory Council for the first time in the month of March. This convocation shall bring together all principal actors to strategize and build a suitable platform to organize and strengthen our community's resolve to defend the only place we call home and our millions of desperate lives on ground zero. Every inch of British Southern Cameroon shall be free. Be it known that we have secured the participation of all major self-defense groups. The interim government aims at providing leadership, not ownership, of our laudable self-defense initiatives. This joint platform will equally ensure good organization, coordination, and efficiency in this very vital domain of our struggle, self-defense. We will soon form a formidable joint defense unit with all major factions to confront the enemy as one man. In reply to their many genocidal assaults against our peace-loving people of Ambazonia, we have decided to match French Cameroon's terrorists pound for pound in record time. We can no longer sit and wait for our villages to be burnt down by Bia's barbaric army or our youth killed or maimed at random by bloodthirsty and trigger-happy terrorist soldiers. We now need the best skills, the best brains, the best capabilities, and our best fight to get us all to Buea as soon as possible.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft. The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Propaganda is commonly created by governments, but some forms of mass communications created by other powerful organizations can be considered propaganda as well. As opposed to impartially providing information, propaganda in its most basic sense presents information primarily to influence an audience. The Franco-Cameroon mafia employs media manipulation once again to thwart the truth, but not with the presence of Undaunted in the business, culture, in the news. Today, we will show you a typical example of the Franco-Cameroon colonizers' media tricks in relation to the liberation war in Ambazonia. The cinematographic release of Senator Mundi confirms to doubting Thomases that the ADF, Choayaba et al. And La République du Cameroon are one and indivisible. What is the truth behind the so-called killings in Akwa and Nigeria by Amazonian forces? In Undaunted tonight, as we spark the ambience of Award 22 alongside the excitement beaming from the entire nation of Amazonia, we will decode the fraud encapsulated within some of these stories. But even before we get started, let's get the prime headlines.
Prime headlines. The release of Senator Mundi confirms to doubting Thomases that ADF, Choayaba et al. And La République du Cameroun are one and indivisible. Media manipulation. French media TV5 doctored video excerpts of Julius Malema protest to thwart public opinion. The Department of Women's Services is running a 5-day sanitary pad fund drive from Friday, May 27, 2022 to today, Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, the last day of International Menstruation Month. The invasion of Cross River State by alleged Ambazonian separatist fighters from Cameroon happens to be fraud. Count up to the D-Day, our 22 pre-draft launch, Saturday, June 4th, 2022, bring excitement to many. Russian oil. EU agrees compromise deal on banning imports. Around 100 dead in clashes between gold miners in Chad. CAF Champions League final. El Mutaraji double delivers third Total Energies CAF Champions League title to Wydad.
Regina Mundi is out of captivity, purportedly from the clutches of Ayabacho's ADF. Should that call for celebration? That's a big question, and that's where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Oni Opala. Good evening, Star Smart, and welcome to this segment of Undaunted tonight.
Good evening, Oni. Fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good evening and welcome. The Regina Mundi movie, staged by La République du Cameroun, acted by ADF, directed by Cho Ayaba, and assisted by Capo Daniel, was poorly scripted. I would say with no fear of contradiction that the cinematographic release of Regina Mundi confirms to doubting Thomases that ADF, Cho Ayaba et al. And La République du Cameroun are one and indivisible.
It is laughable. Do they think Ambazonians for fools or what? Within only 12 hours, La République du Cameroun, Cho Ayaba and Capo Daniel have all contradicted in public statements. This release shows the bad faith, lies telling and hypocrisy, a blend of the colonial Yaoundé corrupt government, feeding fat on his senseless war they declared and are fighting hard for the war not to end.
Perhaps you may wish to think that we are just on the other side. Let's observe this together. How on earth will the spokesperson, Cyril Serge, at Tomfak Guemo, Unit Head for Communications Ministry of Defense, in a communique described how a professional colonial military, aided by the population, helped locate the hideout of the ADF for them to neutralize them, seize weapons, etc. But they have no images to justify that.
There was this fake news that was circulated on the social media purportedly from PM Undaunted, as we chose to go with that because we know the objective. According to the fake news of Undaunted on BBC, we tried to bribe for the release of our CPDM senator in vain. We offered the Ambazonia militants 40 million francs CFA for the release of Senator Regina Mundi, but the separatist leader denied. They are instead requesting that we must swap Ngom Ngala Unfo and Sisiko Ayuk Tabe for our stateswoman. Those demands are impossible, Nkute said. Meanwhile, those demands are in quotes.
Impossible. The $1 million question is, how were these negotiations going on before they now turn to the local populations for a solution? Who is fooling who? The population and the BIRs were there and have been there. Why make this public drama even without images of weaponry seized and those neutralized? From here, no one in his rightful senses should doubt Cho Ayaba and his gang of kidnappers called ADF, how they have been and remain a big obstacle, a big liability to the genuine Amazonian quest for total freedom. ADF hangman Capo Daniel laments, quote, Senator Regina has been rescued by the BIR from our hiding location in Ashong, Batibo. Blacklegs led the military to where we were holding her, waiting for prisoner swap. La République du Cameroon refused to release Pa Mfo Ngala Mfo. We had earlier sentenced the senator to death, but hesitated because Dr. Ayaba Cho was afraid of ICC. Now she has been freed. We turned down an 80 million ransom proposal from her family. Now we wish we had accepted the money, Capo Daniel said May 30th, 2022.
This reporter and other honest Ambazonians affirm without fear or favor that scammers Ayaba Cho and his gang collected over 50 million from the family of Madam Mundi, and that anything ADF is bad news for the struggle. It is clear that any arrest made by ADF is fake. How can they capture a senator, Regina Mundi, and the military comes 2 weeks later to liberate her in Ashong and kill many fighters? This is a typical example of Cho Ayaba's bloody romance with La République du Cameroon. This is all a staged drama by ADF and their ally to boost the deteriorating morale of La République du Cameroon's untrained and unprofessional military.
Unfortunately, innocent youths are wasted in cold blood. We can say that the ADF is worse and more harmful to the struggle than the La République du Cameroon military. Trust ADF at your own risk. Watch the video released by La République du Cameroon for yourself and correlate with the stories.
You are welcome, mommy. And you are welcome, mommy. Thank God for everything.
Invasion of Cross River by alleged separatist fighters from Cameroon. What the Nigerian press, especially Sahara reporters, and the pro-La République du Cameroon paper, The Guardian Post, must know is that the Ambazonian interim government, led by President Samuel Ikome Sako and its restoration fighters, the ARS, have only one enemy, and that is La République du Cameroon and its ally, France, and any other person standing in the way for the total independence of the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, and nothing else.
For this simple reason, the ARFs have no reason to cross over to Nigeria and engage a fight with our immediate neighbor, Nigeria. On the contrary, the ADF of Blackleg, Ayabacho, and La République du Cameroon have their secret alliance with indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB of Nnamdi Kanu, which alliance the interim government of Sako is not a signatory. This education should help Nigerian thinkers, writers and reporters and guide them on the way they see things unfolding and to know where to give praise or apportion blames. Example, this thinker. Quote, "They told you that Cameroonian militants came to Cross River and killed 20. They didn't say Ambazonia for a reason. They don't want you to think anything." Then in another news, they said a Biafra group gave Ambazonia 5 days to apologize for invading the Cross River.
Again, they didn't say IPOB, but a Biafra group. The first news said militants from Cameroon, while another called them Ambazonians. Are you seeing it? They are playing you. They have seen the collaboration between Ambazonia and Biafra, and they want to destroy it. Are you going to let them fool you? Listen, Ambazonians have no reason to attack Cross River. Those that want to blackmail them did the attack. They now also said a Biafra group warned and asked them to apologize. Which Biafra group?
How did this Biafra group know for sure that it was Ambazonia that did it? The truth is that no Biafra group spoke. It is a concoction of the government to play you. They want to create a non-existent problem between natives in Cross River and their Ambazonian neighbors. Do not let them do that. Do not let them deceive you. And don't be fooled. Those blackmailing IPOB have raised the bar. Don't be used to destroying what you have with Amba. Elochukwu Ohagi, philosopher, teacher, and activist, was advising 2022. Evidently, the war is currently fought at different fronts.
That's why Ambazonians must stay focused as the draft season is here.
Right after the break, we will get into the draft, finding out what's happening within every county. Stay tuned.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft. The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
The draft season is here again, and we need to galvanize participation from the grass. I think with all that is happening at the home front right now, media manipulation and the desperation of La République du Cameroon to fight at every front, the draft award is the only way forward. What do you think, Onyi?
Oh yeah, indeed, it is the only way forward. People, make no mistakes about that. The director of resource mobilization, our very faithful commentator, sent out a message. Let's go through out that letter to hear what he has to say. Of course, he will always start with 21 gun salute to all our ARFs, all Ambazonians, all county and local government area chairpersons, all resource mobilizations. Award 22 has been termed draft as if it's your last opportunity to free Ambazonia. We are keen to send chilling messages to Yaoundé, France, and our neighbors.
Nijo says, the launch, which is going to be the most crucial day of our calendar year, has been rescheduled for Saturday, 4th June 2022. Ambazonians are urged to consider the event as the most significant so far for 2022. And think back to our days as pupils in primary school, with the 4th as the last day of school. Usually reserved for Result Proclamation Day, all classworks, including exams and tests, would have being already submitted for grading before that day. On that last day of school, you turn up with your friends, relatives, and parents for your teacher to read your results. This is exactly what we envisage for Ambazonia. Saturday, 4th June is Results Day.
Between now and then, please rally your communities and sensitize them, raise awareness for them, for every one of them to draft. All previous draftees of your local government areas, county, to draft again. Requests for 2021 draft certificates, use them as reasons to contact everyone who drafted for your county and local government areas. You need the local government area representatives from each local government areas. Alright, we would have, of course, our very own Nijo and Mr. Tar here in the studio.
Good evening, Nijo. Good evening, Nijo.
You're muted. Nijo, you're muted.
Oh yeah, greetings. I wonder if you can hear me. I can start with Lady Star today and end with Lady Onye. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, but not so loud and clear.
Really?
All right.
Right, try again.
I know that you've been following our news bulletin this evening. Let's start with Madam Regina and the kidnap saga. What do you think about that?
Did you say kidnap? No, I think some primary school stage play in the playground when when you were in school. You remember those hide and seek things you stage with your friends. It's even some hide and seek games are more significant than this. Listen, this is creating relevance where there is nothing. There's absolute nothing. This is typical of La République, and all they're doing is letting Ambazonians or the rest of the world know that the forces that are recognized as those resisting La République are those that caught up or kept that lady, and they have gone and negotiated with them to release the lady. And what that means is, if there is an opportunity for them to discuss any end of ceasefire or anything to do with this Amazonian war, they will do that. They will speak to those guys with whom they have worked before as to release Regina Mundi. But what that signifies is they are picking and choosing who to work with. That is typical of what they've been doing. You remember, Mundi has no vote. Not even one Ambazonian, not even their relatives voted for her to be senator or whatever she is. The current Prime Minister Ngote, not even his wife voted for him to be Prime Minister. What La République are very good at is playing these games, and this is exactly what they're doing. They're already picking and choosing who to speak with and giving the impression that this was a kidnap. Anybody who allows themselves to be fooled with this would have themselves to blame. We have been in the studio time and again, and my advice to Ambazonians has always been, you remember those 5 fingers? Choose who you listen to. Don't listen to fake news platforms. They deceive you. They're wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. It's a pity that there's a few Ambazonians who might fall in this, but those Ambazonians who don't listen to ABC, because if they listen to ABC, we would tell them this was as worse as a children's hide and seek game in the primary school childhood era. But I tell you what, La République and ADF have gone as low as the belly of a snake. There's nothing in the world that lives that goes lower than the belly of a snake. They have gone lower than that. They buried themselves because this is the worst thing that they have ever done in this struggle or in this revolution. Even the ambassadors in Yaoundé that they're trying to deceive know this game more than they do. And so it's a game that normally would backfire, and they're going to get all the blames for having staged it. But please, if anybody still use the word kidnap, tell them I told you it's not a kidnap. It's a child's hide and seek game in the childhood primary schools, kindergartens.
All right, thank you for that, Nijo. Now, moving to our second story for today. A whole lot of contradictions and complication going on there between what is happening in the Cross River part of Nigeria, where some persons are conflicting, saying is the ARF, some are saying is the IPOB and Biafra. I mean, we wonder why they are contradicting themselves with some very simple issues like this. What do you have to say about that, Nijo?
Nijo, did you get that?
Yeah, the question,
Oh,
Nijo.
sorry, my apologies. I got that, but I thought it was for you. Yeah, of course. I got in here very
I'm going to
clearly.
comment on that much later. Just go ahead, please.
All right. Okay. Yes. One of the things we look into this is, well, before we go into the story, it's already been debunked from the police officers in charge with security over in that state. But I tell you what, again, anybody who thinks and listens and feels that they're listening to a story is somebody who doesn't really know what is going on. Because, as your prelude says, everyone knows that Amazonians, our restoration forces are struggling to have resources to keep out the Republic out of our land. If we had any reason to fight out of our territory, the very first territory we're going to go to is not Nigeria. Even a child, a 2-year-old child will tell you it should be La Republique. We haven't had the resources, we haven't had the time to do that. Why on earth would you
Yeah.
be in a coma, you're seeking oxygen, and you have a little bit of air to breathe? Instead of breathing trying to survive, you're going to share to someone else. Because going into Nigeria is flying. They have their security officers that they're fine. It's a peaceful nation. What have we got to do with them? If we had one bullet, if we had one stick, we would use it on La Republique soldiers, murderers who are on our land. We wouldn't have the time, we wouldn't have the energy, the resource to go into a peaceful neighboring country who have nothing to do with what we're going through. If anything, Nigeria has been in very support, because you can see how many thousands of Amazonians they've taken over to look after them. And then I think even the worst leader, the worst strategist would not think that somebody who is housing your refugees, you go, you leave the horrible neighbor who is murdering, killing your people daily on a daily basis to go and attack a neighbor who is housing, feeding, and looking after your refugees. Unbelievable. Whoever thought? And here's a newspaper that people actually read. And so you actually spend your time to go and read such a newspaper? What a waste of energy. I wouldn't. Thank you.
Indeed. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Tar, you
Start
would
smart
like
on you, if you
to air your
permit.
thought on these bulletins that we've looked at today.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start from the very first one. I was jotting down. There's something I love in what Star Smart said, and also what you said. It's all a fraud. Star Smart said something. He says the Regina Mundi movie staged by La République du Cameroon, acted by ADF, directed by Cho Ayaba, and assisted by Capo Daniel was poorly scripted. I think Nijo will agree with me that even like he said, the school, primary school drama, you need an artistic director to make it real. Now look at Mundi that has been living purportedly in the forest in Ashore for more than 2 weeks. So Cameroon wants us to believe that Mundi was subjected under critical conditions because even ADF fighters cannot feed themselves so healthy.
Yeah.
Like Mundi. Mundi is healthy. She looking beautiful. Now they wanted Kapodanye a few hours ago reported that Mundi collapsed and they abandoned. Joe Ayaba has reported something contrary, totally different from that. And Kapodanya is supposedly the spokesman of the ADF, of Joe Ayaba's ADF. Then Cameroon is wanting you to think that the community of Mogamo is working in partnership with them to betray the so-called Amba fighters or separatist fighters because they are using ADF to do their criminal activities on the ground, but in their narratives, they do not demarcate between their ADF, I call it their ADF, and the genuine Ambarzonian operations.
Yeah.
And right immediately, about the same period of time, in less than 24 hours, we wake up in the morning yesterday. I actually saw the news and I disregarded it. I didn't bring it. We don't report that in ABC. A few in the morning, we wake up to hear that 20 civilians in the Federal Republic of Nigeria have been killed by separatists or Amazonian fighters. A few hours later, Sahara News is also a fake blogging news, comes out to say a certain Biafran, Biafra is asking for Amazonian fighters to apologize for the killing. And question is, how did you know Amazonians? How did you identify them? What parameters did you use to really identify that Amazonian fighters? What is the rationale that Amazonian fighters for? Now, the Guardian Post in Yaoundé, it's another La République paid newspaper that is always looking for every opportunity. And this is unveiling, is revealing to the peoples of Amazonia to know that the Guardian Post is a mistake. They really do not understand what journalism is all about. And therefore, they did not investigate the story. We investigated that story and decided not to report. Not because we are pro-Amazonia, but because there was no substance in it. There were no leads to the story, so we did not report it. Now, the Guardian Post, Roshi, sent out a report just to tarnish the image. So you see, there is one game plan. Everything adds up to one thing. Painting an image, a negative image of the genuine liberation movement to the international community. And it all centers around the same actors, orchestrators of the crime, the same script writers who do not really understand how to do script writing in a movie are the same ones. Now, what I see some blessing in this. This is indicative of one thing. They cannot sustain the restoration forces. The strategies President Sako is beating them on the ground big time. Our resources cannot match them, but we have mastered our strategy and we are resisting. They understand that on the ground, in the hills, in the thick forests, in the thick equatorial forests in Amazonia, they will not beat the Amazonian restoration forces. But again, they want to rally global support against the struggle. That's what they're intending to do. So all of this is a mess. Why do we spend a little bit of time to talk about this? Is because we have the duty to talk to the international community, to sensitize our people. Now, they have two things they wish to achieve: to turn the international community against the struggle and to turn the vulnerable people against the genuine Amazonian restoration forces. Do not be fooled. Like Major said, you have to choose who you listen to. And ABC Amba TV, the board members and the club members are making it possible for you to be accurately informed. Don't we are our purpose in this platform is to inform, educate the misinformed and the disinformed. So forget about all of that story. Like I say all the time, it is a bubble gum that has lost its taste. Spit it out. Nothing happened. Forget about it. Nothing happened to Mundi. Mundi is back for vacation. I think he's back home with his family, and that's it.
And just, I know he
Thank
wants
you
to
so
move
much for
on, but
that.
can I just come in, please?
Okay. Good evening once again.
Okay.
It's nice to have you here as always. My question would be in regards to the draft. It's fast approaching. Saturday is just around the corner. We'd like to know what's happening within the counties and the tiers of government.
Right. Comrade Paddy, I'll take that. I think that's for me. I didn't quite catch a bit. I was
No,
trying to
that's
come
for
in
you, not for
into
me. Definitely,
yes,
definitely for you.
and for that reason, if you permit, Lady Star, I'm going to defer that question and just for any person watching ABC tonight, and you have those clips of the failed game that the Yabas Cho and La Republique staged. Look at the shoes of the army officer with about 5 guns around him holding Regina Mundi, who has gone, as Paddy said, fought in the forest of Ashong in Batibo. Batibo, to the best of my knowledge, has no airport terminal. For some reason, they had an airport there that moved Mundi to the airport. In that background was Mancon, the Bamenda Airport, right? Was that another one in Yaoundé? And the gentleman's shoes
I'm
look
not
like those
interested.
of Prime Minister Guti going to a party. Now, if that is a trained professional army that's just had a struggle to release what do you call it, detainee or somebody who was, but I don't want to use the word kidnap because it wasn't a kidnap. It wasn't. Look at his shoes, look at the attire. It tells you everything about what we're going through. Again, ignore these people. Just forget about them and let us spend our time discussing things that are of value to Ambazonians, the draft, where we're leading into. Thank you very much. Now, there's a lot going on. Comrade Paddy, do you have Professor Epote's number, the chair lady for KMC? Do you have a number? She is willing to come on, but she's in the east, and so her time is quite late now. She's happy to come on the telephone to tell Amazonians what KMC is doing already, but I can assure you, why you do.
I'm
Do you have a
going to
number?
get her because yes,
Okay.
I'm trying to get her on phone so that she can update Ambazonians what her county is doing already for the draft. So go
Thank
right
you. And
ahead.
if she comes on, when she comes, just interrupt me at any time. So I'll come back to the ladies in the studio and to our viewers. We have 13 counties, as you know. We have reports coming in already. All I can say, all of the counties are gearing up to Saturday.
Okay,
And they're
Nijo,
already
like you
putting their
instructed, Nijo, like you instructed, we have Professor Epote here to update us on what is happening in KMC. Professor, you are live on ABC Amba TV, and the people are listening to you.
Thank you very much, Paddy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I believe that Ambazonians are listening as well.
I can hear from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I greet you all, our anchor ladies, Nijo and yourself. Kupamanu is looking up to the draft. At the moment, the executive of the county, which consists of myself as the chair lady, and then you have the chairman for Bangen, the chairman for Nguti. We have the chair for Tombel. Then we have our financial secretary, our treasurer. We have the defense chief, the deputy defense chief. We have our 2 honorables. And then we have 2 members, our 2 honorables who are members of the interim House of Representatives. And then we have 2 members who are members of the Presidential Advisory Committee. These are the members that make up the executive of the county, and they come from the 3 LGAs, and they have each pledged their draft of $1,000.
So if I may ask you really quickly, we are expecting as a goal, we have from the numbers you've called, more than 10,000 US dollars has been drafted for Kupe Manunguba. Am I correct?
You're correct. It's actually 11,000.
11,000. And fellow Amazonians, with the permission of the anchor ladies, I would like to say that this is what is almost all the Amazonians are excited. They are participating. All tiers of government are mobilized. So-called my AGA chair lady actually called me to ensure that we are all part of it. And we're talking to those that are participating. If you don't know how to participate, contact us on ABC and we will tell you. Saturday is a big day. And Nijo, please go right ahead. Oh, do you have something to say again, Prof, before we let you go?
Not really. I think I have given the statistics that I wanted to give.
Okay.
Except if there is a question from any one of you.
Now, okay, let me just ask you one very quick question. In mobilizing the people, are there any challenges you're facing? Is there something you think other counties and LGAs can learn from?
Well, what I can say is that at the moment we are doing an aggressive mobilization, trying to reach out to all sons and daughters of Kupem and Nguba, making them aware that this is the time when they have to stand up for their county and make sure that they are part of this history that is in the making, because after this, the history will be told, and you don't want to be left out when history is being told. Okay. So I think just going aggressive and making sure that we reach out to every son and daughter of Kupem and Nguba is what we have engaged in now.
Wonderful. You. Thank you very much, Prof, for dedicating this time to talk with ABC Amba TV. And I want to join my faith with yours to say that come Saturday, Kupem Maningula will be announcing to us at about 30,000 already drafted.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We look forward to that.
Okay, Nijo, over to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. And the Prof might have left introducing herself out, but I know most of you on your panel know Professor Ipote is also Secretary of State for our Department of Education, and she's doubling as the county chair for KMC. And KMC is one of those that has the core members of the interim government. As you council, members of the interim House of Representatives, and of course Secretary of State I've just mentioned, and a couple of them in the Treasury. So it's one of our very core counties, and we're quite pleased and proud that all of them are putting their heads together to come up to ensure that Saturday is a massive success. Now, having said that, and again, the information from the rest of the counties, Chief of Staff, I'm just trying to get on to Chief of Staff. She is working in the background. Secretary of State, Steve Nebafu, is also working in the background with the other county chairs and LGA executives to push them and motivate their people to get everyone involved in this. So it's a team's work. And of course, without leaving out ABC, your repeated adverts, your repeated news items, and it's highly appreciated. And it would be an unforgiving sin for an Ambazonian to say that they were left out of this, because we have tried. We're doing everything to get to every Ambazonian through every possible channel that we can get to them, to talk to them about Award 22. Because, as we say, this may be your last chance to draft for Ambazonia, because this is it. This is it. This is the last. We want to use this as the last hurdle to get to Boya. So get your names into the history books. Draft. Get onto your LGA. Get your county chairs to get you involved, and we look forward to having a big, great, successful event on Saturday, ladies. And I hope you come out with your uniform as you promised. I look forward to that.
All right, thank you so much, Anija. Of course, I love the fact that you're a very detailed personality. So we are very certain that come Saturday, we'll get all the details that we want to get, especially when it comes to finances. You're very detailed at that. And so I have no fear that after the Award 22, you'll definitely come back and give us the necessary results and feedback. Right, so I'm sure that your expectation is in line with what the prof had mentioned, Professor Ibute, right? If I'm correct, yes.
Right.
But then, is there a baseline? Is there a baseline? And do you also have challenges? I know that we all have challenges, but based on Award 22, do you have challenges that you might think that you might want to talk about? Probably Ambazonians, both in the home front and in diaspora, may want to, do the right things and help and support you instead of adding to those challenges.
Yeah, I know. Part of the challenges come as an element of excitement. Those who are ready to draft want the treasury to be up and running, but then the treasury for internal reasons, and all of us are aware of what the Coopers did. We're taking some time to put everything in place. That's one of the challenges. Maybe people are phoning in, where should they pay? Where should they pay? That's one challenge. We haven't got that resolved yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed, by Friday, we would have details to give them and of course, get going. Another obstacle, another challenge we're facing is uncertainty. A few Ambazonians are still those that are not sure what is right, who is saying what, and who should they trust. But I tell you what, if you are an Ambazonian, speak to your LGA chair and get to speak to your family or friends in the home front. They are the only ones to assure you who is in control of home front, who sends our ARF the required resources. Speak. If you're in doubt and you're an Ambazonian, speak to your LGA chair, get a contact of one of our ARF on home front and speak to them. They would assure you that this government is the government. The IG under Dr. Sako is the one that's sending resources to your AR. The one other challenge I'm looking at, I've foreseen one or two LGA chairs have asked, is the fact that those who drafted last year and had not completed, should they be drafting this year or last year? My answer to that, and one or two persons might differ, is that last year is last year, okay? You drafted last year, we're in the new year, you have moved into a new class, let us do the work in this class. Let us do this work now. Don't go back and doing the work that has gone past, okay? You're here, we're here now, let us draft for Award 22.
Nijo, please. You're talking about finances. We need to clarify that. Are you saying that those that were not able to meet up their draft of last year should let it go and concentrate on the new year? Is that what that statement means?
I would clarify that as further and say, yes, that is what I mean. Instead of going to say you're going to delay drafting this year because you want to complete your draft for last year, I would tell you, we need you to draft for this year. Okay, we've gone past last year. We did what we had to do last year. We're here now. Come help us. Let us do what we have to do this year. If you drafted $600 or $500, leave that with your LGA. We have had a cabinet discussion as to whether those people should be awarded their certificates, and we have reflected that to your LGAs. If your LGAs think that the $500 you contributed last year is good enough and deserves a certification from them, they would request for it. So rather than hold back your draft for Award 22, please submit that for this year. That of last year we will deal with at your local level. Okay, it's nothing to do with the Department of Resource Mobilization. Department of Resource Mobilization wants you to draft for Award 22 and draft as much as you can, because you might not have to draft again. We might not be here next year asking for you to draft. We're somewhere very close or near or in Boya and telling you what else to do once you have some resources. So I hope that answers your question. And but I will be here if you want me to take more of your questions moving forward.
Before Award 22 on Saturday, we'll definitely have you before then. I'm sure Mr.
Definitely.
Tao would make
You
that
can bet your
possible.
bottom dollar on that. I'd like to pop up tomorrow. I'd like to pop up again on Thursday and Friday. And why not Saturday? If you want me anytime, it's the phone call away.
All right, definitely. We'll work towards that. Thank you so much for always making yourself available. We appreciate it. We move on with the news now.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft. The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
What is happening around the world today? Russian oil. EU agrees compromise deal on banning imports.
EU leaders say they will block most Russian oil imports by the end of 2022 to punish Moscow for invading Ukraine. The EU-wide ban will affect oil that arrives by sea, around two-thirds of imports, but not pipeline oil, following opposition from Hungary. Poland and Germany have also pledged to end pipeline imports, meaning a total of 90% of Russian oil will be blocked. European Council Chief Charles Michel said the deal cut off a huge source of financing for the Russian war machine. It is part of a sixth package of sanctions approved at a summit in Brussels, which all 27 member states have had to agree on. Russia currently supplies 27% of the EU's imported oil and 40% of its gas. The EU pays Russia around 400 billion euros, that's about $430 billion, and 341 billion pounds a year in return. Could the world cope without Russia oil and gas? So far, no sanctions on Russia gas exports to the EU have been put in place, although plans to open a new gas pipeline from Russia to Germany have been frozen. The UK, which gets 8% of its oil needs from Russia, has pledged to phase out Russian oil by the end of the year. Oil prices have climbed on news of the EU embargo, with Brent crude rising above $123 a barrel, its highest level since March.
What is in the EU's sixth set of sanctions? Russian seaborne oil to be banned by the end of the year, with a temporary exemption for pipeline oil. Two-thirds of Russian oil arrives by sea. Pledges by Poland and Germany to stop importing pipeline oil will raise coverage of the ban to 90% of Russian imports. Russia's largest bank, Sberbank, to be cut off from the SWIFT payment system, which allows the rapid transfer of money across borders. 3 more Russian state-owned broadcasters banned. More restrictions on individuals' responsibility for war crimes in Ukraine line. EU members spent hours struggling to resolve their differences over the ban on Russian oil imports. Hungary, which imports 65% of its oil from Russia through pipelines, was its main opponent. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has good relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The compromise followed weeks of wrangling until it was agreed there would be a temporary exemption for oil that comes through pipelines to EU, Mr. Marco told reporters. Because of this, The immediate sanctions will affect only Russian oil being transported into the EU overseas, two-thirds of the total imported from Russia. But in practice, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the scope of the ban would be wider because Germany and Poland have volunteered to wind down their own pipeline imports by the end of this year.
Leftover is around 10 to 11% that is covered by the Southern Druzhba, Ms. von der Leyen said, referring to the Russian pipeline supplying oil to Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. The European Council would revisit this exemption as soon as possible, she added. A senior EU official confirmed that the three landlocked countries were given an additional guarantee that they could obtain supplies of seaborne Russian oil in the event of an interruption to pipeline supply. The Russian ambassador to the EU, Vladimir Chizov, said Brussels had already approached the limits of what is possible in terms of sanctions. Speaking to Russian state TV, he predicted serious problems if the EU were to try to agree on a gas embargo.
The ban on Russian oil imports was initially proposed by the European Commission, which develops laws for member states a month ago. But resistance, notably from Hungary, held up the EU's troubled latest round of sanctions. Mr. Orban declared the agreement a victory for his country, telling Hungarians they could sleep soundly, protected from expensive fuel costs that the embargo would bring to the rest of Europe. We succeeded in defeating the proposal of the European Council, which would have forbidden Hungary from using Russian oil, he said in a Facebook video. Other landlocked countries such as Slovakia and the Czech Republic also asked for more time due to their dependence on Russian oil. Bulgaria, already cut off from Russian gas by Gazprom, had likewise sought out ops. The cost of living crisis being felt across Europe has not helped either. Skyrocketing energy prices, amongst other things, have curtailed some EU countries' appetite for sanctions, which could also hurt their own economies.
Putin will try to exploit EU's differences. The EU's oil agreement is a compromise deal, but it's also an important one. Moscow is heavily reliant on its energy supplies, and the EU says this deal will cut more than 90%, even if Moscow is heavily reliant on its energy exports of Russia oil imports by the end of the year. But considering all the saber-rattling and anti-Western rhetoric we've been hearing from Vladimir Putin in recent weeks, I suspect the Russian leader is more likely to say to Europe, quote, get ready for some more economic pain because of this embargo. Let's see how long your support for Ukraine lasts. The Kremlin is aware of the differences of opinion within the EU over what to do about Russia, and you can be sure that Putin is going to try to exploit them. Russia will look for new markets, but in terms of oil, that's not a quick fix. The infrastructure isn't in place to reorient oil exports from Europe to Asia, for example. And if it does sell to Asia, it will have to do so at a discounted price. There's also the question of Russian gas, and embargo on that could be discussed next.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who dialed into the summit, urged EU countries to stop their internal quarrels, stating that they only helped Moscow. All quarrels in Europe must end. Internal disputes that only encourage Russia to put more and more pressure on you, Mr. Zelensky said via video link. Latvia's Prime Minister Krišjānis Kariņš said member countries should not get bogged down in their own personal interests. It's going to cost us more, but it's only money the Ukrainians are paying with their lives, he said. Russia cut off gas supplies to Dutch firm Gazprom on Tuesday for refusing to pay for supplies in rubles. The EU has said paying in Russian currency breaches sanctions, and Gazprom has already cut supplies to Poland, Finland, and Bulgaria.
Let's find out what is happening in Africa right after the break.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft. The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
Let's look at what is happening in Africa. In Central Africa, 100 people were killed a week ago in clashes between gold miners in a remote desert region of northern Chad.
According to the Minister of Defense, General Dawood Yahya Brahim, the clashes started on May 23rd with clashes from a banal dispute between two gold miners. Only it is important to highlight that these were clandestine mines.
You are correct, sir. The region in the vast mountainous and desert massif of Tibesti is full of mines, often operated by a multitude of gold miners from all over the country and neighboring states Libya, Niger, and Sudan.
On Wednesday last week, Communication Minister Abdurrahman Koulamala said in a statement that the clashes more than 1,000 kilometers northeast of the capital N'Djamena had resulted in loss of lives and several injuries. Quote, "This is not the first time there have been clashes between gold miners in the region, and we have decided to suspend all gold mining in Kari until further notice, knowing that the vast majority are illegal," said Dawood Yahya Brahim, claiming that the clashes were mainly between people from Mauritania and Libya.
Mauritania and Libya, wow. Now, God Edison, we will be looking at other aspects of this story and also a story from Sudan. Some political prisoners freed after lifting of state of emergency. Let's hear him.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
Carnage. The leader of the opposition party, led transformateur Sukse Masra, and the main armed rebel movement, the Front Lieutenants Ella Concord Uchad, had also claimed this toll. The defense and security forces did not fire at all, and there were not 200 deaths, the defense minister said. A rebel group present in the region, the Military Command Council for the Salvation of the Republic (CCMSR), said in a statement on Monday that the carnage had taken place under the complicit gaze of the forces of order. What is the hostile zone? It's a hostile zone, almost lawless. It's the Wild West. Everyone goes there because there is gold, so there are conflicts, the communication minister said on Wednesday. Deadly clashes between Libyan Arabs and inhabitants of Ouada East had already in January 2019 killed several dozen people in Kori. It has also triggered a gold rush by poor young Chadians from the center of the country who have been handed over to the gangs for whom they work in very difficult and precarious security conditions. Now to Sudan. The Sudanese military authority headed by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan released Monday political prisoners. According to the BBC, 125 activists were able to leave their cells. They were allegedly leaders of the Resistance Committee, a group opposing the military coup. The prisoners were released from facilities in the capital Khartoum, Port Sudan and Rabat in the southeast. The news comes after the lifting of the state of emergency. On Sunday, Sudan's ruling Sovereign Council recommended that people detained under an emergency law should be freed. The defense minister insisted these recommendations were meant to facilitate dialogue between the military and the pro-democracy movement. So far, UN-mediated talks to solve the country's political crisis were rejected by the Sudanese Professionals Association, an activist coalition that played a pivotal role in the ouster of leader al-Bashir in 2019. Unrelenting protests gathering thousands have taken place across the country. The October 2021 military takeover ended the military-civilian power-sharing arrangement. Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
And of course, it's a Tuesday. And of course, you know what Tuesday is after Undaunted News. The Secretary, Dr. Mungwa, is coming live on top of the hour. So Ambazonians, please stay tuned.
And he has an interesting line of discussion. Secretary Mungwa is going to talk about the draft 2022 Stop France's Economic Thievery of Ambazonian Resources.
IG's rejoinder of the guidance post, of course, fake news, and there will be live calls as well.
You don't want to miss a minute of the session exclusively on ABC Amber TV. Stay tuned.
Let's bring you the editorial.
In our editorial of today, we captioned Ambazonia, the dream we live and the life we dream. Identity consciousness. What if the paradise we seek is the Rome we live in, but because we have uninspiring memories and less valued attachments to this sacred ground and home of ours, we keep wandering towards illusions, ebbing towards imagination and chasing the light of curiosity in images of political preferences. In an independent Ambazonia, where free men and loyal citizens of the nation with daily priorities set forth by the common survival interests marshaled out by the government of the day or political leadership for the people. There is that government in place by conventional wisdom and unique political circumstances. If we the people were conscious of home exercising full right and authority of ownership or being loyal to our government, where we are would be Ambazonia, and Ambazonia would be we. We would have been able to separate owners from caretakers and indigenes from aliens. All we need to do is to know that we are home, the land of our inheritance, the place of our origin, and the home of our ancestors. The wastelands of the UAE did not change ownership authority after their transformation. The Old Jerusalem and New Jerusalem didn't shift location nor move to some overseas location. The land we live on, with all its covenants, geography and value, is exactly the same references of Ambazonia. If it's your land, if it's your own, then reward yourself with rights above claims, authority beyond politics, and sacrifice without doubt. We are in Ambazonia already. It's our fears, artificial preferences, economic corruption, and social contamination which deprives us from a certain ownership rights. And because we have failed in these primary duties, we all sit and expect the interim government to prove itself worthy and powerful enough to defeat our enemies in order to prove that it deserves our loyalty and the recognition of external forces. Ambazonia has become everything of the future and nothing of the present. Ambazonia to many only describes a home or place which by definition is something other than the reality. Certain almost unrealistic changes have become preconditioned for the existence of Ambazonia to take effect. Ambazonia has been given attributes and characters which opposes current adaptation and survival patterns. The people see themselves less in the material necessities of their present environment and survival state while aiming for the Ambazonia to come. The people think the present is valueless and undeserved, against which precious resources should rather be reserved and not sacrificed to defend it. Without a sense of ownership, adopted measure seems foreign, if not completely bereft of originality and vitality. The absence of such bonds and connections only reward a dream state than shape reality. What if the Ambazonia we desire is who we really are and truly are, but because we don't know ourselves or have not known ourselves in this identity, we go about trying to be something in the possibility, appeasement, attributes and character of politics. The Ambazonia we are is not a title, status, label, or reward. It's we and who we are. But because much is left out there to be defined by authority, power, law, and politics, we begin to think Ambazonia is something that must be won or earned. The very unique people now seeking to be recognized as Ambazonians will be the very same people known as Ambazonians tomorrow, except that today, as a people in society, there is lack of self-recognition. We are not organized in full proclamation and attributes of this identity which already exists, and we're not assertive enough in this belief beyond the opposing claims of politics. If only we had the consciousness of who we are today, we would not need identity papers tomorrow and the recognition by others to enter our names or to be ourselves. It's we who have refused to enter our name, organize ourselves by this higher consciousness, prioritize our relationship on the basis of this identity, and function in the light of this inherent belief. And because we fail in our number one duty, we are simply looking for an interim government or an individual who will win battles on our behalf, force identity papers on us, and cut deals for others to recognize us as Ambazonians. Ambazonia has become a status which certain security and material guarantees must be present for one to acclaim and proclaim. The people think Ambazonia are a creation of international law and political consequences, which only by such height of recognition can they or shall they become Ambazonians. The Ambazonian identity has become something you may win on intellectual debates and or lose in warfare. The people are chasing signs and events which qualify and justify being Ambazonians rather than living as Ambazonians. Ambazonia has become something which someone has to win battles to become or to confer upon the people rather than the people expressing the Ambazonian consciousness. Ambazonia has become subject to the quality and effect of prevailing standard of both law and politics rather than by origin and rights. What if where we come from, where we are, and where we are going to is one and the same place? But because our preferences are informed and ordered by value systems which put us on a course, we see ourselves on a journey from point A to Z, from somewhere to nowhere, from one place to another, from nowhere to somewhere, from anywhere to everywhere, etc. Surely every battle has a start to finish, beginning and ending, with certain expected outcomes. Expectation sometimes creates false impression and perception if it sets the goal above body. Surely every battle has a start to finish, beginning and ending, with certain expected outcomes. Expectation sometimes creates false impression and perception if it sets the goal above body weights, beyond measures of natural justice, in length of artificial barriers, in distance of apologies, on notions of competition, and against rules of fairness. The Ambazonia our parents were, that we are now and shall be tomorrow, is one and the same place, one and the same identity, one and the same people, one and the same origin, one and the same struggle. It is not a journey that demands leaving our homes, traveling to some distant place, or adopting different cultures. All we have to do is to start being ourselves, start taking possessions, start looking to ourselves, start living the dream. Yes, it's a journey of some sort, from Yaoundé to Boya, poverty to prosperity, tyranny to liberty, slavery to freedom, etc. But he who is Ambazonia is already a free man with wealth of nationhood, irrespective of the logic of physical constraints which human beings on earth is subject to. Ambazonia is seen as a faraway destination with too costly and so demanding a journey. The independence quest has become time-rated, with individuals losing faith with the passage of time. Individuals have costed themselves with specific and limited sacrifices which they're not willing to go beyond. Not realizing the Ambazonia within time-rated expectation is being misconstrued as failure and defeat, with huge and uninspiring emotional burden which discourages further commitments and contributions. The independence quest has become judged on its unconvincing impact on stubborn or unchanging realities. The dimensions of battles have adopted physical, artificial, and superficial characters with obstacles which predate the outcomes. It seems winners and losers, or victors and vanquished, have being known by politically defined elements and notional status and unfair characterization. But dimensionally and politically speaking, how does character differ both in people relationship and country recognition? And where is the interim government placed? And this is where we end today's editorial. Thanks to Comrade Don Wannabe, the Lord of the Realms. You're welcome back. If you want to get more of such amazing articles, visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber News.
And now sports. Zuel Mataraji scored a precious double to hand Wahid Athletic Club a 2-0 win over defending champions Al Ali and clinched the 2021-22 Total Energies CAF Champions League titled to the Mohammed vs Stadium in Casablanca on Monday. The forward, who missed the second leg of the semi-final against Petro de Lunda due to suspension, scored a goal in either half, handing Wahid their first title since 2017, when they coincidentally beat El Ali again to lift the crown.
Al Ali's dream of becoming the first team to win 3 consecutive titles and clinching a record extending 11th were swept away. While coach Pitso Mosimane's hope of a record equaling 4th Champions League title also went the same way. In front of a packed Mohammed V Stadium, noise decibels cranking up in the maximum, Wydad couldn't think of a loss. They showed their intent from the word go, the sound in the stadium injecting the hunger of a title into their veins.
Gab Ellison has more.
Latest world sports. CAF Champions League final. El Mutaraji double delivers third Total Energies CAF Champions League title to Wydad. Zuhair El Mutaraji scored a precious double to hand Wydad Athletic Club a 2-0 win over defending champions Al Ali and clinched the 2021-2022 Total Energies CAF Champions League title at the Mohammed V Stadium in Casablanca on Monday. The forward, who missed the second leg of the semi-final against Petro de Luanda due to suspension, scored a goal in either half, handing Wydad their first title since 2017, when they coincidentally beat Ali again to lift the crown. Ali's dream to becoming the first team to win 3 consecutive titles and clinching a record extending 11th were swept away, while coach Pitso Mosimane's hope of a record equaling 4th Champions League title also went the same way. In front of a packed Mohammed V Stadium, noise decibels cranking up in the maximum, Wydad couldn't think of a loss. They showed their intent from the word go, the sound in the stadium injecting the hunger of a title into their veins. Champions League final. UEFA commissions independent report into scenes outside stadium. UEFA has commissioned an independent report into the scenes outside the ground that delayed Saturday's Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid. Kickoff at the Stade de France in Paris was delayed by over half an hour, with Liverpool ticket holders seen waiting in huge queues and French police later using tear gas on crowds. On Monday, French authorities complained of what they called industrial-scale ticket fraud amid a row over the game's policing. UEFA said a comprehensive review would examine a number of factors. These include the decision-making, responsibility, and behavior of all parties involved in the final, it added. UEFA said in a statement, evidence will be gathered from all relevant parties, and the findings of the independent report will evaluate the next steps. The report will be independently compiled, and Dr. Tiago Brando Rodrigues from Portugal will lead the production of the review. Chelsea's £4.2 billion sale. Chelsea's £4.2 billion sale to Todd Boehly-led consortium completed. The club was put up for sale in March before previous owner Roman Abramovich was sanctioned over his links to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Chelsea had been operating under a special government license which would have expired on 31st May. Boehly said in a statement that he was honored and wanted to make fans proud. His consortium fought off 11 serious rivals to become the new owners in a sale process that started on 2nd March and comprised more than 250 inquiries. "We are honored to become the new custodians of Chelsea Football Club," he said. "We're all in 100% every minute of every match. Our vision as owners is clear. We want to make the fans proud, along with our commitment to developing the youth squad and acquiring the best talent. Our plan of action is to invest in the club for the long term and build on Chelsea's remarkable history of success." The UK government, which said last Wednesday it could issue a license for the sale of the club, does not want Abramovich to receive any of the sale, which will instead go into a frozen bank account to be donated to charities supporting victims of the war in Ukraine. Tennis. French Open. Iga Swiatek beats Zheng Jingwen and meets Jessica Pegula next in Paris. Top seed Iga Swiatek fought back from dropping her first set in 10 matches to beat China's Zheng Jingwen and reach the French Open quarterfinals. Swiatek, who turns 21 today Tuesday, celebrated by earning a 6-7, 5-7, 6-0, 6-2 win over world number 74, Zheng. Zheng fought off 5 set points to win an absorbing opener, then was hampered by a thigh injury from the second set. Poland's Swiatek extended her winning streak to 32 matches and now faces 11th seed Jessica Pegula. Pegula also produced a comeback to beat Romania's Irina Camelia Begu 4-6, 6-2, 6-3 in her 4th round match early on Monday. The 28-year-old American is the higher seed left in the women's singles behind Swiatek, who has only faced unseeded opponents so far. After recently reaching a clay court final in Madrid, Pegula has made the quarterfinals at Roland Garros for the first time. Now she faces the toughest task in tennis at the moment, stopping hot favorite Swiatek at the place where the Pole won her maiden Grand Slam title in 2020. Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
And with our sports reports, we've come to the end of tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, here's a recap of our major stories. Release of Senator Mundi confirms to Doubting Thomases that ADF, Chowayaba et al. And La République du Cameroon are one and indivisible. Media manipulation, French media TV5 doctored video excerpts of Julius Malema protest to thwart public opinion. The Department of Women's Services is running a 5-day sanitary pad fund drive from Friday, May 27, 2022 to today, Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, the last day of International Menstruation Month. The invasion of Cross River State by alleged Ambazonian separatist fighters from Cameroon happens to be fraud. Count up to the D-Day Award 22 pre-draft launch Saturday, June 4th, 2022, bring excitement to many. Russian oil, EU agrees compromise deal on banning imports. Around 100 dead in clashes between gold miners in Chad. CAF Champions League final, El Motaraji double delivers third Total Energies CAF Champions League title to Wydad. And that was tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of my co-anchor Onyi Okpala and the entire Undaunted crew, I wish to say thank you for tuning in. I am Star Smart and we leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Stay tuned and have a good night.
number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.